not guilty? Ashlee Buzzard's arraignment, wearing wigs yet again. And, we've been covering this case. We finally have movement in the Melody Buzzard case. If you thought the details were disturbing before, what just came out in court regarding the evidence takes it to another level, a whole different level. Melody Buzzard was shot in the back of the head by her mother, Ashlee Buzzard. And Ashlee has finally been arraigned in California, and we have the confirmation on whether the death penalty is even on the table.
Arraigned in court, Ashlee Buzzard was charged with first-degree murder in connection with the death of her 9-year-old daughter after the girl's body was found in a rural part of Utah more than 2 months after she disappeared. Authorities believe Melody was killed on October 9th during a multi-day road trip she took with her mother, which stretched as far east as Nebraska. Joining us now, NBC News correspondent Stephen Romo and NBC News legal analyst Misty Maris. Misty, I'll start with you here. Walk us through what local authorities are saying. I understand they say there's significant evidence against Ashlee Buzzard.
Yeah, so talking about significant evidence, and interestingly, this case is charged as a premeditated murder. So we're talking about planning and preparation.
This mother planned this. The evidence shows she planned it. She rented the car, wore the wigs, changed the license plate, and drove her 9-year-old daughter, Melody Buzzard, all the way from California to Utah, where the 9-year-old's body was found with a bullet to the back of her head. 3,000 miles of driving, and she didn't change her mind. Wow, wow, wow. This is sick beyond repair, in my opinion.
Which is what local authorities have said in a press conference, that they have significant evidence to show that Ashlee Buzzard engaged in this conduct, killed Melody Buzzard in a premeditated fashion. We also know that there are special circumstances to these first-degree murder charges. Lying in wait and discharge of a firearm causing death. Lying in wait is generally going to mean the gunshot came from behind. Melody's remains were found at the beginning of December, and it took law enforcement some time to make connections of the evidence to link it back to Ashlee. And now we see she was in court today for arraignment, pleading not guilty to first-degree murder.
Not guilty.
And to that end, Stephen, I want to bring you in, walk us through this plea and what we heard out of court today.
Yeah, just such a tough case. Seeing pictures of young Melody here and then hearing what is what her mother is accused of. We did hear from Misty there, the arraignment just wrapped up with Ashlee pleading not guilty to first-degree murder. And our producer in the courtroom described the audience there, the people in the courtroom, as groaning or gasping whenever that plea was made of not guilty, in part because so many people in that community feel directly connected to this, because it started with a missing persons case back in October. Melody's school reported her missing because she had excessive absences, and then police started this search, and the community joined in, wanting to find this young.
I'm so happy that the school reported this. I can't help but wonder if they had reported it 2 weeks earlier, if Melody would be alive today. But we move on.
Girl, and sadly, she was found earlier this month in rural Utah, dead from what appears to be a shotgun wound to the head. The FBI working to help use DNA to confirm her identity. Just each step of the way, each new detail seems more horrifying than the last. And that would help explain the groans that were heard in the courtroom today.
And to the point of location, Stephen, right, you mentioned she was found in Utah. Misty, why exactly is this trial happening in California?
So this is actually very unusual. You're usually going to see murder charges brought in the state where the authorities believe the murder occurred. And authorities have said that they believe it happened sometime between traveling through the Colorado-Utah border, and ultimately the body was found in Utah. The charges are brought in California because what the authorities have said is that they have significant evidence of that premeditation, and all of that occurred in California, making that the proper jurisdiction for these charges. So this is going to be a unique case on that fact alone. And also, when you're talking about evidence that formulates premeditation, that all has happened in California and this multi-state search for evidence.
Look at this woman. She's got no emotion. She's not even, I don't know. She is calculated enough to plan this and drive 3,000 miles for 3 days and not turn around or change her mind and shoot in the back of the head, her own daughter. And look at the stone cold lack of emotion. It's again, in my opinion, sickness beyond repair.
This is going to be a little more complicated than it seems on its face.
All right, Misty Maris, Stephen Romo with that breaking.
It's going to be more complicated than it seems on its face because they have decided they want to charge her in California where there's not likely to be any death penalty imposed, instead of bringing her where the murders happened. And she pleaded not guilty, as you just heard. The DA is opting for life without parole rather than the death penalty. And the legal analysis says that this is strategic because it avoids decades of appeals and ensures she stays locked up faster. But the biggest question has been, was this a mental health crisis or was it a crime? And the defense is almost certainly going to argue insanity or a mental break. But the prosecution, they're arguing concealment. They claim the evidence shows that she knew exactly what she was doing, but she took extreme steps to hide it. What do you think? Do you think she knew what she was doing? Or do you think she was completely insane beyond knowing what she was doing? Tell me what your thoughts are below it before we get to the next video. Got 4 videos to watch here, just quick ones on this case. Buckle up.
Murder charge with special allegations. What does that mean in terms of sentencing should she be found guilty?
Well, this is a case that actually could be eligible for the death penalty if she is indeed found guilty. But keep in mind that California has a moratorium on the death penalty. So really at this point, it's probably a moot point. It's also very rare that she is charged in California when the crime actually took place in Utah and crossed state lines. So I'm very surprised with this decision to charge in California.
Jennifer, does that add enhancements because the crime took place in a different state, but she's actually in California?
No, the enhancement comes from the premeditation of the situation. Officials are charging that she actually premeditated this crime well in advance to this journey. And they're going to have a long road to hoe to prove that premeditation took place in California, but they think they have the goods to make that case.
Jennifer, how important is it that the weapon itself has not been recovered? This is information that we know.
Yeah, this is, again, makes it a little bit more difficult. But the good news ballistically is they not only have a bullet at the scene, and we're not talking about casings. In other words, we're talking about the full bullet at the scene, in the rental car, and at the house. They are all match in terms of consistency of ammunition. So that helps the case.
Jennifer, talk to us about, in your experience, why this case, cases like this seem to just hit the consciousness so hard, because you've seen a little bit of everything, but there's something about a mother being accused of killing their child that really just seems to knock people back on their heels.
No, you're right, Nick. Anytime you think of a mother, somebody who gave birth and was supposed to care for this person, and more importantly, the child's perspective, who, they're supposed to trust their mom more than anyone. And yet this was the person accused of this crime, their mother, and it touches our hearts.
Jennifer, if Buzzard pleads not guilty today, how do you believe the defense will build her case?
We'll expect her to plead not guilty, and this is squarely going to be a case about mental incapacity. They are going to claim, I believe, some sort of insanity plea. This mother has struggled with mental issues for many years. The family and everybody has well known about it. So that's, I think, the stance they'll take for her defense.
But Jennifer, that's, just to be clear before I let you go, that's not a guaranteed get out of jail free card just because she makes that plea and has a history, a documented history of mental health issues.
No, absolutely right, Nick. This is going to be their struggle. All they have to do is prove she knew what she did was wrong. And those evasive techniques that the reporter led up to, that is going to show she knew exactly what she was doing was wrong, that she came back to that house, that she covered things up, and that's going to be an issue for her.
Jennifer, happy holidays to you and your family, and I look forward to actually talking to you one day about something upbeat and cheerful.
What do you think? Again, I think this woman driving 3,000 miles, planning it ahead, knew what she was doing. How could she not have known? How could she not have known? She wore wigs. Did you catch that? Swipe the license plates. So if you're having a psychic breakdown and you don't know right from wrong, why do you need a wig? Why do you need to change the plates on a rental car? That screams consciousness of guilt. And it gets worse because the physical evidence found in Utah directly connects her back to California. I just can't help but wonder, before we go into this next video, this poor child had not a clue. And what happened in those last minutes is unfathomable to even grasp how this child felt. Did she try to run? Did she see it coming? Was it dark? I can't even fathom the level of callousness that goes into this kind of planning to execute in this way your own daughter. It screams consciousness of guilt.
Renowned trial lawyer who's represented high-profile clients like Mike Tyson, Hunter Biden, and more. Mark Garagos, thank you so much for being here. You know, we've been talking about this case for a while now. Nancy Liu just doing a story about how shocking things were, the Buzzard case. Perhaps the most surprising development in an already surprising case. Prosecutors are not going to seek the death penalty for Ashlee Buzzard. Instead, they intend to pursue a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole for the 40-year-old. Either way, if convicted, she'll be behind bars for years. What do you think about this?
Well, I think in California, where I practice predominantly, it's usually the smart move. There is a tendency to believe amongst prosecutors that at this point in California, if you go for the death penalty, the jurors might react strongly to reject it. I mean, that just is the reality, which is somewhat ironic because the defense for many years complained about the death penalty as basically weeding out pro-defense jurors and kind of acclimating the jury to be pro-law enforcement. And it's kind of flipped on its head. So I understand it, and I think jurors are loath in California to give the death penalty, and so it makes sense to me.
Does the fact that the victim, is related to her mother, and it's her mother in this case, how will that play into all of this? And could she see a less severe or more severe?
Look at this cute little kid. It's just sad. And while this picture's 3 years old, oh God, it just makes my heart melt for this kid. I don't know. If there was ever a case, this is one of them. And Nick Reiner, where the death penalty and just maybe should be reconsidered. I know it's not humane according to a lot of people, particularly in California, but man, can you rehabilitate people like this and Nick Reiner? Can you?
Well, I think part of the problem is with a case like this, even veteran criminal defense lawyers that I know are repulsed by the accusations. And it's a very difficult case to get your head around if what the prosecution alleges is true. And that is, no matter that enhanced degree of trust between a mother and a daughter, the maternal bond, this shakes that belief, that kind of that primordial urge to the core. And so that is a monstrous problem. And the allegation, frankly, is monstrous. I think part of the bigger problem is for the defense and frankly for the prosecution is how do they tie this together? When I first heard about this, I thought that this was a custody dispute gone awry, which you often see in these kinds of situations. But obviously this did go awry, and I don't want to prejudge it. I don't know more about the facts. I think it is very...
Let's just look at the map for a second. Melody's seen October 7th. And she was found December 6th. Ashlee returns home without her. This picture here on October 7th, officials believe was the last time she was seen alive, and she likely was killed right after. Shortly thereafter. Wild, wild, wild. Let's keep going.
Strange, so to speak, that there was no arrest made once the prosecution knew that she had traveled basically to the border of Utah and back. And I suppose they were waiting for the body, but I've seen many cases in California in the last 10 years with homicides being prosecuted with no body.
Right. Great point. The sheriff in Santa Barbara County called this cold-blooded, criminally sophisticated premeditation and heartlessness that went into planning, and ruthlessness went into committing the crime. This is going to be a tough one to defend.
Well, I think if on the facts, if they've got the facts to tie this together, yes, it's a very tough case to defend, and there will probably be some kind of a mental health defense element to it. However, I haven't seen enough of the evidence, and I kind of counsel people always, let's not prejudge until we see how the evidence unfolds. I just don't know. I don't know. I can think of various other scenarios, maybe because the one that's alleged by the prosecution is so horrible, I don't want to even accept that it's possible. So I understand that, but I would just counsel, let's wait and see what the evidence looks like.
Do you think the insanity plea would be the way to go in this case?
Well, one of the things you have to do as a defense lawyer when you get a case like this is you have to first assess your client's mental stability. I mean, there are all kinds of red flags, if you will, about this client's mental health or potential mental health. That's number one. But number two, at the same time, you got to walk and chew gum at the same time. You need to analyze what the police and prosecution have developed. Where are their facts? How did they tie this woman to the crime itself? Not just the abduction or purported abduction, which may not even be an abduction if there's no custody order that was violated. Transportation, yes, but the problem is who caused her death, when was her death, and what was the means. And so that's what it's going to come down to first. Before they ever get to a mental health determination, a lawyer is going to have to evaluate the facts of whether or not the prosecution can actually make their case.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below.
What do you think? I mean, wild, 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 wild. Wow. So, is this the nail in the coffin for the defense argument? Bullet casings at the scene, matching ammunition found at her home. This wasn't just a tragedy of circumstance. The timeline suggests Melody was killed around October 9th, and Ashlee left her with her, and she came back alone. Prosecution is building a case for premeditation, first-degree murder, claiming jurisdiction in California because the planning started there. I don't know, man. If there was ever a case of premeditation, it certainly looks like this was one for me. But let's watch the last video.
And are you requesting that I enter not guilty plea in denial?
We're entering the not guilty plea.
Okay. Not guilty plea
Ladies and gentlemen.
is entered. Special allegations are deemed denied. Do you give up and waive your right to a speedy preliminary hearing? Okay.
Wow. 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 I want you to remember that it was lucky, and God may have had a play in how she was discovered by chance by some people in the area, her body. I want you to remember for the 2 months, October 7th, she left, and they started looking for her and found her body early December. For 2 months, she concealed this. She concealed it. She avoided questions, even though she was arrested for something different. So let's just read this couple. Thank God for this. How a back road discovery led to the arrest of Melody Buzzard's mother and the child's calculated killing. As of December, as the December sun set over the central Utah's sandstone peaks, a couple ventured down a nondescript dirt road to snap photos against the backdrop of Red Rock Vista. Instead, they stumbled upon a grisly discovery among shattered shrubs, and parched soil, the decomposed remains of the little girl. When the sheriff's deputies arrived in the sparsely populated stretch of Caneville, it was clear they would be investigating a homicide. The unidentified girl had died from gunshot wounds to her head, authorities later said. Unbeknownst to investigators at the time, they had before them the remains of the 9-year-old California girl, Melody Buzzard, whose confounding disappearance during a road trip with her mother had mobilized a vast network of local, state, and federal investigators who searched for 2 months across 8 states. An image of her cheeky smile and a cascade of ringlet curls had been projected across the nation by media, law enforcement, and the concerned public. Ultimately, it would take 2 more weeks before they determined all signs pointed to a suspect whom Melody trusted the most in the world. Santa Barbara County Sheriff Coroner Bill Brown said. Melody's mother, Ashlee Buzzard, was arrested Tuesday and charged with first-degree murder in her daughter's killing, which a criminal complaint said was carried out with exceptional cruelty and viciousness. Murmurs rose, as you just heard, in a courtroom Friday as Buzzard pleaded not guilty. Prosecutors said they would not seek the death penalty if she was convicted, but would instead ask for a life in prison without parole. Investigators said they were stymied by deliberate efforts to hide the truth, clumsy disguises, swapping license plates, suspicious driving, and an uncooperative mother who could never provide a reasonable explanation for Melody's whereabouts. CNN has reached out to the Buzzard's attorney for comment, and here's how investigators say they finally pieced together the DNA ballistics and a multi-state web of leads to connect Melody's mother to her killing. A home without Melody, the universe where Melody lived with her mother was small. It revolved around a single-story home that looked like any other in their Lompoc, California neighborhood, and where the streets bore whimsical names like Stardust Road, Pluto Avenue, and Solar Way. Notice they lived on Mars Avenue. I can't help but think of the irony from that, suggesting not all there, mentally. Many of Melody's extended relatives had not seen her for years, and they had largely lost contact with the mother after Melody's father died in a motorcycle accident when she was a baby. Her aunt, Elizabeth Meza, told News Nation, it's not her family that reported her missing in October, but a concerned school administrator. On October 7th, Melody's school asked the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office to do a welfare check on the child due to her prolonged absence. October 14th, and they feel that she was killed between the 7th and the 10th, obviously, during that 3-day trip. Just days too late. It's sad. It's beyond sad. School's employees had not seen Melody since August. Again, maybe a quicker, not blaming them, but maybe there needs to be rules that when a child is homeschooled and haven't been seen, that within 4 days, 3 days, 5 days, whatever it is, it's reported to law enforcement. Just saying. School employees had not seen her since August, when Buzzard's enrollment in her study program would allow her to attend school remotely, according to Sheriff's Office and Lompoc Unified School District. The school cited helped detectives narrowed their search early in the investigation when previously citing of Melody was sometime last year. Officers arrived at the Buzzard family home on October 14th, but only found Ashlee Buzzard and had no verifiable explanation for Melody's whereabouts, the sheriff's office said. When they searched the home, Melody was nowhere to be found, unraveling a winding multiple-state road trip. And the next day, investigators executed a search warrant on the Buzzard's home, uncovered information that would dramatically narrow their search window. Buzzard had recently rented a car at a local rental agency where surveillance cameras captured Buzzard and Melody's disguised in wigs. The sheriff's office said images released to the public show Buzzard in thick golden hair and Melody with a hoodie pulled over thick bangs. This poor kid, the last time she was seen alive, had no idea her mother was planning such a brutal, violent murder. Tell me what you think. I don't know, man. I was hoping the death penalty would be on the table here. I know that's not realistic in California, but as you just heard, most professionals assumed they would charge her where the murder occurred. And yeah, they chose to go to a state in California, which does have the death penalty, but really is in moratorium, whereas Utah does have the death penalty. So what do you think? I mean, I guess I'm so sick of hearing these stories, and I just think somebody that planned it to this extent, yeah, clearly you have to have mental health issues to do something like this, but she knew what she was doing. She concealed it for months. She planned it ahead, and she deliberately withheld the truth while they worked at trying to get the truth from her. And I mean, the elaborate plans don't show incapacity to know what she was doing, in my opinion. What do you think? Thank you for being here. Do the YouTube things, please. Love and light.